Good evening and happy weekend. This evening, I would actually like to bring up a fairly controversial topic. It can potentially be offensive or upsetting to people, but you know what? I've never been one to censor myself. I don't believe in censoring yourself when it comes to talking about serious religious issues, interfaith issues, personal experiences. These are things that cannot be censored. Just like certain politics cannot be censored, like the whole vagina deal I did a video about a while ago, how if you can't say the word, you have no business legislating it. Well, we find ourselves in the religious community. Actually, I should say like the greater religious community, because we want to apply to everybody. It becomes a matter of if it's offensive or could potentially be offensive, or if it's a hair trigger or really hot controversial issue, it needs to be addressed, because there's a reason why it's a hair trigger. There's a reason why it's hot button. These are things that we need to talk about. We can't just let them slide. We can't just ignore them. They're real. So let's talk about one of them. The issue is a question. Do pagans hate Christians? Now, I'm not a Christian, so I can't answer the reverse. I can't answer do Christians hate pagans. I'm sure many of the evangelists, the evangelical born again Bible thumpers, as we would call them, I'm sure a lot of them do hate pagans. Some of them probably hate the people. Some of them probably hate the religion. Some of them hate that we practice the religion and are lost sheep or whatever. I can't answer that question. I can mull it over in my head all I want. But the Christians I know, family, a couple of friends, really just a couple, they don't hate pagans. They just either support it, totally understand it, or they don't understand it and they're totally neutral. Like, hey, you're a good person, it's just another religion. I can't really speak for the ones who hate it or hate us as people. The question of do pagans hate Christians, this is important because you expect, especially the really conservative Christians, you expect them almost in a sense to be really, you expect them to not really want much to do with pagans or pagan practices. You expect that. There's Christians who really don't care, who are totally cool. Then there's the ones who we all have met them, we've all experienced this. They don't want anything to do with us. They just rather there be a wall. They want to pretend we don't exist. But then you've got the pagans. You've got the pagans who have had some serious shit go down with Christians, and it's no longer a matter of that they can ignore them. We've dealt with Christians, these type of Christians who aren't the people who just ignore us and want nothing to do with us. These are people who are pretty militant, and I've had experience with lots of them. Some were even more distant family. Some were strangers. It's made me really... I've never really been in the closet, so I think because I've dealt with this BS with these types of Christians so often, it's just made me like, I'll just say it, it's made me feel like a freaking pagan warrior. I take the shit, and I take it with my head held high, and I deal with it, and it helps me to help other people. I feel good that I can be out of the closet, making shit better for people who are still in the closet. I have had issues where people have told me I worship the devil. We've all heard that, seriously, it's nothing new. But to your face, having people kind of like harassing you, customers harassing you at work, you kind of get a thick skin and you kind of learn really fast how to deal with it, and you learn how to help other people. I don't hate Christians as a whole. I don't hate Christianity as a religion. But considering some of the experiences I have had over the past 7, 8, 10 years, it's made me struggle with it. And I believe that anybody who can admit that either they hate Christianity or they hate Christians because of ABC, or that they hate these types of Christians because of ABC. I feel like nobody has the right to tell them they're wrong. I feel like it's nobody's place to tell them, well, you're just making us look bad. It's nobody's place, because if you listen to some pagans, I haven't heard all the stories, but I've heard many. If you actually listen to what they have to say, why they have this difficult relationship, it reminds me of an abused dog. When you kick a dog, when you beat a dog, all it knows is to bite. All it knows is to just be afraid or just be pissed all the time. Do you know what I mean? If you beat a freaking dog, that dog is going to bite back. That dog is kind of marked in a sense. That dog's probably never going to be right about a certain thing. So even though I was able to use my negative experiences with certain Christians in a positive way, there are people who can't. There are people who've had way worse experiences and a much harder time. I lucked out. I only have Christian relatives, distant Christian family. My immediate family is more like me. I was raised very openly. I did not have conservative Catholic or Protestant parents telling me I had to get rid of my pagan books or I was kicked out of the house. I didn't have to deal with that. I know people who did. So because I was kind of blessed with a more liberal, open-minded, agnostic family and positive experiences, especially since I live in a blue state. I live in Massachusetts, not too far from Salem. Massachusetts is really one of the safer states to be openly pagan. I do know pagans who have just been shit on by Christians to the point where just the word Christian, it sends them off in a tizzy. Do you know what I mean? So, do pagans hate Christians? No, not as a whole. We absolutely do not hate Christians or Christianity as a whole. A lot of pagans grew up Christian. They have Christian relatives and friends. They support them. They understand them. The Christian versus pagan battle is as old as the church, I swear to God. There's no hate. Like I said, I can't speak for the Christians. I can speak for many pagans. There's no real hate on the whole. A great number of Christians are compassionate people. They accept us. They are, in my opinion, Christ-like. There are, however, many who don't. They give true compassionate Christians a bad name, and these are the people I've had to defend myself against and fight against, and these are the people who don't know how to mind their own business, and they really do a lot to hurt, whether intentionally or unintentionally, do a lot to hurt people, even pagans. So if any hate exists between these two, it's strictly on an individual basis. Many pagans have been attacked and mistreated by Christians, families, friends, co-workers, customers, strangers, just community. But like I said, the logic, it's like if you kick a dog, he'll bite or learn to be afraid. However, we're not talking about animals. We're talking about people animals. We're people. I mean, we're animals. People are animals, I guess. But if we do take a look at the fundamentalist Christian mindset, many of these fundamentalist Christians honestly believe that we're evil. We're not just misguided people. They honestly believe that we're evil. Paganism itself is dangerous. It's evil. It's devil worship. It's worshiping false gods. We shouldn't have, in certain states, pagan parents have gotten their children taken away from them because being raised Wiccan or pagan or whatever is dangerous for kids. It's a dangerous environment for kids. So, and when you have these types of fundamentalists, there's really no teaching them otherwise, and this actually does a lot to increase the tensions between our two communities. So the belief by fundamentalists makes it easier for them to treat us poorly. It kind of justifies it because they believe they're right. So pagan parents, like I said, in the southern states primarily have lost or nearly lost custody of their children. Judges have actually ruled in favor. or actually ruled against the parents, like this is no environment for a child to be raised in. Pagans also tend to stay inside the broom closet. Yeah, the broom closet. It's a way to protect themselves. Much like the homosexual communities in some states, not so much here because Massachusetts is a very open kind of liberal state. But much like the gay community, a lot of gay people stay in the closet because it's legitimately safer. If their parents don't know, they don't get out of their house, their parents don't see them any different, their friends won't leave them, they won't get bullied or whatever. It's a similar mentality, but we're talking about like religion, we're not talking about sexuality, so there is a bit of a difference, but not a lot. So it's a matter of safety. A lot of pagans are in the closet because they feel safer there, and it's really sad. And that's why I feel one of my jobs, you're looking at my face and hearing my voice, you know a lot about me. One of my jobs is to be out of the closet and to kind of fight on the proverbial front lines for other pagans, because it kind of makes me sad that there is a sense of hate or distrust or discomfort or anger even. I feel anger towards Christians some of the time. Pagans who do stay in the closet, they have a fear of losing their jobs, their children, their friends, their family, or their reputations if they're found out or if they're outed, in a sense. It can be harmful to the pagan community when some of its members feel that they have to hide, they have to live in fear. Depending on, the family life or what state or even what country they live in, there's really no exaggeration. Pagans do actually have it rough. I don't know from experience because, like I said, I'm in Massachusetts, but I've heard from people, I've talked to people, I've heard other stories that it can be a sketchy environment if you're openly pagan in other states, other parts of the country. So, the pagans that do hate Christians, they don't just decide to hate Christianity. They don't just decide to say, your God is an asshole and you're an asshole, and be petty about it. Nope, there's nobody that I know, no pagan that I know, who hates Christianity or hates Christians for no reason. There's always a reason, and I accept it as legitimate. Because if some pagans, or actually if some non-pagans would actually hear what some pagans, especially younger pagans, have to deal with, you'll understand why they feel the way they do. And I'm not saying it's right to hate. I don't believe it's right to hate. But you have to understand where, I'll say we, the collective we, where we are coming from when we say, I hate this. I hate these types of Christians. I hate Christianity. Because it's sad that Christianity does, at least in this country, I think we're like 70% Christians, and there's like there's tens and tens and tens of millions of fundamentalist Christians, and that can be frustrating if you're in a conservative state. So when you have a pagan, sometimes I wonder, do I hate Christians? I sometimes feel like I do. But when there's a situation of anger or malice or distrust or discomfort or hate between a Christian and a pagan, we have to acknowledge why. Like I said, I have never met a pagan who just hated Christians because they could. There's always a reason. They were harassed, they were abused, maybe they lost their kids, or I already said harassed. There's, at work, at home, at school. There was an issue many years ago, 10 years ago, where a 13-year-old girl, a Wiccan girl, committed suicide because Christians were bullying her at school. That's a big deal. And this is something we have to fix. I'm willing to say for now, well, we still have a lot of work to do, while we still have a lot of work to do, helping pagans to use their anger and their hatred in a more positive and constructive way. Address, like, if you're watching this and you're kind of like, yeah, I've had some shitty experiences, I feel like I hate Christians, or I hate certain Christians or Christianity. If you're feeling like that, like I sometimes do, ask yourself why. Is there an incident that sticks in my mind where I became the kicked dog? Am I still the kicked dog? Sometimes I still am. Sometimes some things happen. But ask yourself why. Accept that you have those feelings, and accept that it's okay as long as you kind of work on it. It doesn't do the pagan community any good if we're still hating people. Like, the next time I hear that my dad's cousin was telling him that his daughter's a devil worshiper, and how could he let me do what I do? How could he sit by and just let me ruin my life, and I'm worshiping the devil, things like that. When my dad gets those phone calls, I have to think to myself, consider the source. These are people who have been brainwashed by their church. They are super fundamentalists. They are not real Christians in my book. And I let it go. And I'm able to be okay with Christianity again. I'm in a class right now where we're mostly learning about the history of Christianity. And honestly, the idea of Christianity is great. But then there are people, like, you've got cult churches like the Westboro Baptist Church, and then you've got fundamental super churches, the type of churches that send their kids to Jesus camp, things like that are kind of scary, and you wonder what these kids are going to grow up to be, and are these the type of kids that are going to grow up to abuse my kids or make fun of my kids? Let's take our negative experiences that we've been having with these fundamentalist, Bible-thumping Christians, or maybe even Catholics or Protestants. I mean, there are Christians who belong to non-fundamentalist sects that can, I'll say it, be very un-Christ-like. So if we share our experiences and our feelings with each other, share our the shit that's happened to us, I think we can create dialogue. And we shouldn't be afraid to create dialogue with the more open-minded Christian communities, the people who support us, the people who accept us and are totally fine, the people who are Christ-like. I feel like if there's room for it, and if it's relevant, we should not hesitate to start some sort of dialogue and say, look, we're both on the same page here, but this is how I feel about your religion sometimes, and we want to fix it. At least this is what I would like to see happen. I feel like, well, first I feel like I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I think it works. I'm tired. I feel like if we do share our negative experiences with people we trust, of course, I wouldn't go blabbing to Christians, I fucking hate your religion, how dare you. I wouldn't do that. We should take some time to work on this. Because if we say we're trying to make paganism more digestible or more friendly looking or more culturally accepted, we can't do that if there's still this whole terrible relationship between pagans and Christians. Of course, there's always going to be rockiness, especially between the more conservative, hardcore Christians and Christianity, like the fundamentalist evangelical people. There's always going to be some rockiness. But I feel like we'd be doing ourselves a great service in addressing these bad relationships and our bad experiences and our unfortunate feelings of hatred and anger if we address them with Christians who will listen to us and will help us and kind of form some sort of interfaith alliance to move things forward into the 21st friggin' century. So, Yes, I do still find myself hating Christians sometimes. And it's never because I feel like being pissed. It's always because something happens. It may not even be directed at pagans. It could just be in the freaking news. Like, politicians saying homosexuality will be the doom of America. And when gays get a hold of this country, they're going to own us. And it's going to be the end of our America. That pisses me off. That makes me hate Christians. But I know I shouldn't hate them. I accept that it's a true feeling. And I use it to fix things like I'm doing now. I like to fix problems. So I hope what I've said makes sense, and I hope everybody can kind of work through the bullshit that they've had to deal with for however many years you've had to deal with it. Don't be afraid to say, I hate this, as long as you can take that hatred or anger and do something positive and constructive with it. Don't be hating. Don't be hateful. Work through it, and we can do it together. Pagan power, baby.